This episode is brought to you by ASIC Ninja.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Today we're here with David Branscombe. How you doing, David?
What's up, Scotland? How are we?
Wonderful.
Good.
Well, I'm just really excited about this first ever episode of the Crypto and Mental Health podcast here. And we're excited to have you on. So, David, where are you calling in from today?
I am. I like to tell people I'm from Austin because I was originally, but all of my friends and people I work with will remind you I'm not in Austin. I'm now in the suburbs in Round Rock, so I'm about a 5-minute drive from the Dell headquarters up just north of Austin.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, so that kind of made it convenient for that the conference that we put on over there.
Convenient-ish, just because, even though it's only about a 20-minute drive, if you're hanging out with all these people that are in town that you don't get to see very often, a 20-minute drive at 2 a.m. feels like 40 minutes. So this last time I just went ahead and, got a room and just stayed there. But yeah, not having to travel made it very convenient. So I hear you're gonna put the kibosh on that plan though, thinking about moving it back to another location.
Yeah, maybe a location a little bit more convenient to me.
There you go.
And my family, so it'll be a little 2-minute drive for me instead.
I won't hold it against you. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so David, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background in crypto and Bitcoin and mining, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So I guess I started getting into like GPU mining really about, honestly, I think probably like a lot of people during the pandemic, like so 2020, late 2020, 2021 kind of time frame. And but it was just, GPU, Ethereum, stuff like that. But I very quickly found myself kind of automatically, so I was mining through like NiceHash and getting paid in Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff very quickly. I just didn't like the volatility. You didn't know what, I don't know, the more I looked at Ethereum, just the uglier it kind of got. So the more I learned about it. So, but I guess I really, during the pandemic was just doing kind of some odd work and stuff like that. I've always kind of had my own business and I didn't at the time. A bit of a serial entrepreneur, whether it's my business or just helping a startup get going or whatever the case may be. So I wasn't doing anything and I decided I was going to build a grow bed in my backyard, a raised flood and drain grow bed with my koi pond. I've got a little koi pond in the back.
Nice.
Yeah. So I was like researching plumbing, bell siphons, figuring out how all this kind of fun stuff worked. And my neighbor across the street came over because I was piddling around in my garage. He's like, "What are you doing?" So I told him. He said, "Well, so you bought a kit or whatever?" It's like, "No, I'm, cutting the PVC. I'm doing it myself. It's pretty simple and, basic." And so he came around back.
You're a pretty physical kind of guy. Like me personally, mechanically, I'm pretty inept.
I do, as far as my home and stuff like that, I do a lot of the stuff myself. I'm not an electrician by any means, but I've done quite a bit of, outlet replacement, rewiring, adding stuff. I've done a lot of crown molding, painting. So I actually got my degree in art. I learned how to, like sculpture was my emphasis. I learned how to cast bronze and weld and stuff like that. So yeah, so I love a project that lets me build something, so to speak. Well, my neighbor turned out was the CEO at the time for Midas Immersion. Literally still lives right across the street from me. And so I came to work for them doing business development, VP of business development for them for not too long, really about 9 months or so. And then went out on my own. I realized immersion's really cool. It's still what kind of brought me into this space. They had just closed a big deal and they were rolling that out. So I learned kind of the pros and cons of, an immersion setup, and especially at scale. And then I managed to add about another, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 megawatts to their business. And then went out on my own because realized a lot of people in this space, Bitcoin was at the height. So there was a lot of people coming into the space that wanted to get into this, but didn't have a clue, how to do anything.
Yep.
And so they had money and they had time and they had resources, but they didn't know how to do this. And I'm not, by no means am I a mining operational expert all the way across the board, right? But I know how to find the people that are. I know how to find.
Yeah. I mean, that's hard to find. Somebody that knows it all. In this industry, I find that we really need to rely on other people because people in this industry have only been doing this for about 10 years maximum, right? And most people in this industry only have a few years of experience. So yeah, it takes all types.
Yeah. In fact, I think I was thinking about that earlier, specifically for this. I was just thinking if there's one thing we can do, we need to keep in mind as an industry as a whole, right, is that everybody's new. Even the ones that have been in it for 10 years, this industry is moving so quickly and growing so quickly. We just need to bear that in mind, right? So there's people that have, may make some bad decisions or make some mistakes or whatever, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, right? Try to be logical about it because you never know. I mean, I'm talking to people. I'm just now working on projects with people that I met like almost 2 years ago. Right. Like we did nothing together. They're like, oh, that's really cool what you're doing. I'm like, yeah, it's what are you doing? You learn what people are doing. And then to me, it's kind of funny. It's like a deck of cards, right? Like you have, oh, I know this guy who does this guy who does this. Right. And it's like, okay, it's time to play this card. It's time to play this card kind of thing. So it used to be called a Rolodex, Scott. It's what it used to be called. That lets you know how old I am too. I feel ancient, even though I've only been in this industry, maybe a year and a half, 2 years, but so yeah, just be kind and forgiving to those folks, that we're all trying to kind of figure out our way in this new industry. So
definitely. Yeah. Well, hey, so I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Some personal, some maybe whimsical, and some industry related.
Whimsical.
But whimsical.
Good word. Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll just start with one of those whimsical questions. So, hey, if somebody gave you 500 Bitcoin tomorrow, what would you spend it on?
Hash rate. Actually, I probably
good answer.
Yeah, the right answer is probably just HODL. But and I probably would, honestly. I think I feel like, if money's the root of all evil, debt is the devil. So if you've got any debt and interest are the devil. Yeah. So if you've got any debt.
Well, I heard it was the love of money. That's the root of all evil.
That's correct. Yeah. That's correct.
Not money itself, right?
Yeah. So I think that I feel like, well, I wonder if Jesus knew about CBDCs. I don't know. But
and the Bitcoins.
And so I feel like if you've got that, yes, you want to. This is a really good. Anytime's a good time, honestly, to get into Bitcoin, in my opinion. Right, whether it's your job or you just want to stack. But if you have any kind of debt, get it off the books. I don't care. Warren Buffett.
That's the kind of thing that will weigh on you for sure.
Oh yeah. Warren Buffett says the 3 things that will kill a man is ladies, liquor, and leverage. So that leverage is, I'm not a huge fan of Buffett. He's done so, obviously he's a smart guy, but that he's not wrong. You know what I mean? That leverage is brutal. So you got to clean that off. So if there's
ladies,
liquor, and leverage. Yeah. I said that at a Bitcoin meetup, and somebody said, "I'm gonna tattoo that on my arm." It's like, okay, I wouldn't go that far, but it's get that off. So if whatever kind of debt I have, I'm still like, I mean, I'm in good shape with my house, but I'd pay off my house, just be done with it. And, only once you clear that line item, that debt, can you really truly start to kind of build.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, interesting parallel here. I actually have a friend who got 500 Bitcoin stolen from them.
Oh,
Yeah, it was an AT&T SIM swap
are you
attack.
serious?
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm helping him write a book about it, but
God.
you can imagine, all he wanted to do with this Bitcoin was he wanted to lend it out to people. He wanted to help people start up little micro businesses, give out micro loans, and
Yeah,
he wanted to pass it down, generationally to every single one of his kids
sure.
and grandkids and grandkids. And, he really didn't need it. But I can just imagine, I think he probably spent about a year, questioning life and questioning everything,
Sure.
questioning who his friends are, how this happened, what is he going to do now with his life? Um, so yeah, I can only imagine, yeah, if you won 500 Bitcoin, that's one thing, but if you
Lost it.
lost 500 Bitcoin that you earned rightfully, over the
Yeah.
last however many years of mining or buying, yeah, that could do a toll on you.
That's people are we're affected greater by the losses than we are by the wins, which is really odd. Um, but like if you're, I've done a lot of different, management courses and sales training courses over, the last really 20 years since I've been working. And people will move faster to avoid a loss than they will to gain or invest in something that could, gain, right? Um, so it's like when you ask people if they say their finances are in trouble, and they start to look and they really decide, I'm going to fix this, I'm going to do something. First thing they start doing is looking at things where they can cut, right? They can stop the loss of cash flow and that sort of thing. So psychologically, having something that's taken away from you in any way, shape, or form, whether it be money or job or loved one,
Yep.
whatever,
Yep.
that always, in a weird way, that always hits us so much harder than when, the new things. We expect our life to go along and have all the new and good things happen for some reason, even if experience tells us otherwise. So when those things come and hit us, yeah, it's really, really bad. I went into the pandemic not having like income for the first time in pretty much my entire life.
Yeah.
I mean, since probably age like 16.
Well, you
And
said you're a serial entrepreneur, right? So that means
yeah,
highly
yeah,
unstable.
I've tried to quit multiple times. There's
Yeah,
been some.
it's hard, man.
It
Like
is. It is.
get that
Who
itch.
is it? Who do I follow? I'm probably gonna butcher his name. Max. What's his name? Gagliardi. He's gonna hear this or see it and get angry at me. But he said he tweeted out this morning. He said he spoke to an entrepreneur he has a lot of respect for. He says being an entrepreneur is not something you aspire to be. It's almost like an illness. You're just drawn to it. So for better or worse, you just can't stop doing it, even if you wanted to. Um, I've definitely been the happiest when I'm working for myself. And it doesn't matter if it's a good month or a bad month or a good year or a bad year in most cases. But in 2019, like March, I had a business that was moving pretty well. And then all of a sudden, but it was kind of on a really niche market. And all of a sudden, within like 60 days, I lost all of my contracts. It was gone. And I'd been working on that business for like 6, 7 years. So that was brutal. And it leads to doing even more stupid things, right? Like you're not honest with yourself or your family about your finances. And, you don't talk about the situation. So basically for 9, 10 months, right, I just didn't tell my wife, didn't tell the kids anything. And then you look up and all of a sudden, like all your savings are gone, you've got nothing left all that kind of stuff. Um, to me, that's kind of a mental health issue. Right? If you can't be honest about that, or you can't, there's either something wrong with the way you view yourself, or there's something wrong with maybe the relationship with the
Right.
people you're with. In most cases, it's us lying to ourselves. The people are there and they
Yeah.
want to help. You're not honest with them about that kind of thing.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
that makes sense. I hear you. I went through a similar situation recently, and um, yeah, no, I'll get into it another time because we have
sure,
many more episodes to go.
sure.
But yeah, when you can't, how do you say it? You're either lying to yourself or you're lying to your family, or
Both.
what? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You can't come to grips with really. I think as an entrepreneur myself, I put a lot of weight on my self-worth being tied into the success of my business, right?
sure.
Um, so yeah, it is definitely hard to think, hey, if I'm not doing well in business, or if I'm going into debt, yeah, that weighs on you. It makes you feel less than,
Yep.
and maybe makes you even want to work even harder. But sometimes it's working harder isn't always working smarter, and you can dig yourself even into a deeper hole.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and it's one of those that those kinds of things can, and in my case, and probably in yours too, it can just spiral out of control, right? And then you start to feel like you will never ever get out of it, and that's when things really kind of go dark. And I mean, you talk the pandemic. I saw what that did to me personally, and I saw what it did to my. I've got two boys. Saw what it did to them. Um, it basically stunted them socially and emotionally, and to a large degree academically, at least for a year, because they were at a good school that literally was back online like by the fall, right? So they were at least doing something. It wasn't a lot, but they were doing something. But most of the kids out there were, they're behind by 2.5, 3 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Some of these schools, and you think, I'm not really worried about the academics. Um, I'm not even, and the social thing, they'll catch up, right? I'm worried about psychologically, what it did to them, and how it the attitude was that something bad happens, so we're supposed to retreat to our home and not do anything.
Right.
That's my biggest issue with the way we handled all of it, right? And so imagine, you know your situation, or we're not the only guys out there, right? Everybody's 90% of all divorces cite money problems, financial issues as the reason for divorce. So, there's a
Right.
ton of people out there dealing with that. But imagine losing all of your income, losing your job, not being honest with yourself, running through, all your savings, and then going into the pandemic with nothing. That was it was brutal. Um, and there were times when I just didn't think we were going to make it. You know what I mean? Um, I was lucky enough to avoid all of the crypto stuff. So like Mt. Gox and onward,
Yep. Scams.
yeah, scams. Um, because I very quickly transferred from all those, Ethereum based altcoins or whatever to Bitcoin very quickly. But most, these people that don't, I mean, these people that are struggling to pay their bills, and then they run up and, like you said, they have all that money, right? They think they have that money, but they really didn't. It was never real money.
Right.
And then it just disappeared on them. So they're investing money they can't afford to lose, and then they lose it. Um, this industry's got to fix that. And I honestly, I hate to say it, but the more bad things that happen, the smarter this industry will get. Um,
True. Yeah. Yeah. That's how people learn.
unfortunately, unfortunately, it is. So
Hey, we have a question here.
Oh, there's Cam. Hello, Cam.
Hey, Cam. He says, where was the 500 Bitcoin held when he got swim swapped? So yeah, we're talking about my buddy. So he had it in I think it was in a hardware wallet. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, it wasn't on an exchange. What he had done is back in 2013 or so, when nobody really understood this stuff, he sent his private keys to himself in his Hotmail account and forgot about it. So when he got SIM swapped, they did a something like a whatever it is, a two-factor authentication, reset of his Hotmail,
Mhm.
and got in there and started going through his emails from oldest to newest, and basically, yeah, they got it, all of his exchanges, all of his other wallets. But yeah, he had sent himself his private key and forgot to delete it. Um, so that's that.
Man.
Yeah. Hey, so another question for you. Maybe another, how about a personal one this time?
Mhm.
David, how would your parents describe what you do right now for work?
Uh, they don't know. Um,
Yeah,
they,
no clue.
they have no. They just know. They're like, so how's your Bitcoin thing working? And to be fair, I'm kind of in a weird spot anyway, right? Like I don't own my own farm, and I'm not hosting. I just kind of help build things and connect people and stuff like that. So
Professional schmoozer, huh? Okay.
I
I
don't,
get
I
it.
don't, I don't really look at it that way because there's a lot of guys in this industry that are really good at that, right? That are really good at that. Lee Bratcher at Texas Blockchain is pretty good at that. Dennis Porter's Satoshi Action Fund's pretty good at that. Anybody who's coming into Bitcoin from the oil and gas industry out of Houston is really good at that, right? There's quite a few of those guys. I just kind of I don't know. I just kind of I I watch what's happening, right? Like it's Telegram, Twitter, Nostr, all day, every day, honestly. And so I'm not studying, but I feel like I'm doing a lot of reading because that's how we communicate now is through
Yeah.
those mediums. And so I'm just kind of watching what happens. And then if someone says, hey, I want to mine, it's like, oh, well, yeah, I'm getting some of these XPs. It's like, oh, well, these Luxor guys they're working on a new, firmware that's supposed to be able to overclock. I have tested it. So it's just knowing what's in the industry and being able to say, hey, this might help you out, right? Sometimes it's for me it's a job and I get paid for it. Sometimes it's just, hey, let's get this thing built. I don't care, what happens. I'm just trying to make things happen. Um, and so that's kind of what I do. Just try to stay in the know to watch what's
Facilitating.
going. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Facilitating is probably a pretty good word.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's quick go to commercial here, and we'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Scott's Crypto Mining.
All right. So we've got a couple of events coming up here, and I'm just going to share my screen. So this first event is called the Advanced Miner Repair Training. It's level 2. So if you already know a little bit about fixing miners, maybe if you've already taken our level 1 class, or if you've taken the Bitmain training, you can take your skills to the next level and be a part of what we're doing here up in Wisconsin. So April, you can come here for a week, and we'll teach you everything you need to know about the advanced level of fixing miners. So you can see here how to use an oscilloscope, how to use a hot plate, all sorts of awesome things. And then there's 2 special outings that we have planned in there. So it's a very upscale, quality learning experience. Our second event here is Scott's Virtual Mining Conference. We did one of these a couple years ago, and it was just the most hilarious, fun way to learn ever. running around with little avatars in a 3D virtual world. You can even wear your Oculus if you want, and interact with fellow Bitcoin miners and other people in the Bitcoin mining industry, young and old, and people have been in it for a long time or not. So it's going to be an expo hall as well. So there'll be sponsors and exhibitors. You can actually walk into their booth. For example, like back here, there's a whole line on both sides of exhibitors that have their booths there and have videos and special presentations. You can ask them questions. And then coming up in December 28th in the Dominican Republic, we have an event where we can celebrate Bitcoin and freedom with Bitcoin mining experts from around the world in Jarabacoa. My twin brother actually lives and works in Jarabacoa. So we're going to go visit him and have an awesome time just learning and sharing. So the agenda for that is at 1 p.m. We're going to do some networking, and then there's going to be a presentation. We're going to have a little party, maybe have a little liquor, not too much leverage. Maybe some ladies. I'm married, but
Be careful.
Yeah,
careful.
And then a hosted dinner from 5 to 7 p.m. So everything's all included there. And then after that, we're gonna have an after party up in the mountains of Jarabacoa in Dominican Republic. It's beautiful. You can actually see the mountains there in the background.
What's the date on that, Scott?
That's December 28th.
That's New Year's, baby.
Yeah, right after Christmas, before New Year's, come party.
Yeah.
Well, back to the show. So my next question for you, David.
Mm-hmm.
So earlier you're talking about, some downtimes and COVID. What would you say your biggest failure has been so far, and what did you learn from that experience?
I mean, by far, it's that not communicating about finances and things like that, right?
Just bottling it up and not,
yeah. Oh, I can handle it. It's all okay. I got it. To be fair, most of the time, I do, right? But it's the times that it's hard to know exactly what it is that's going to set you off, right? Or what that big mistake, they're called mistakes for a reason. You don't see them coming, or you choose to make the wrong decision, right? It's really just kind of, I think it's probably a lot of it's self-awareness, right? Just being aware of where your shortcomings are, the mistakes you've made in the past, and not forgetting them and that sort of thing. That's probably the worst, because everything always spirals from there. Anytime you're not honest with yourself or honest with the people you love around you, bad things happen. And the good news is, if you're around the right people that love you, they're going to forgive you and they're going to help you. I think also a lie we tell ourselves is that, they're not going to forgive us, or they're not going to help us through this, or whatever, and that sort of thing.
Right.
And I don't have time for those kinds of people. And I purposely,
ain't nobody got time for that.
No, ain't nobody got time for that. You purposely have to let, people say this, but it's really difficult to do. But you really do need to do your best to try to keep those people out of your life. Everyone's in your life for a reason, but not everyone's meant to stay there. So the question is, figuring out. I was talking to somebody the other day and trying to explain what I do, right? It wasn't my parents, but trying to explain what I do. And they said, well, it sounds like you're trying to surround yourself with, the right people, with good people. And I think that's probably the most important thing to do, right? If you can surround yourself with good people. I can't remember, the quote, the smartest guy in the room, right? And then somebody said, well, I don't ever want to be the smartest guy in the room, because that means I've got nowhere to go but down. I can't remember. It might have been like Tom Brady or somebody. but they said, it's like, I don't want to I never want to be the best guy in the room because I have nothing to aspire to at that point. And that's looking back as far back as I really can remember from college, when you start to kind of high school, you don't really have a lot of choice, right? You're still being raised, you're being told where to go. But in college, I got to where I got to choose who I spent time with, who I hung out with. And I was very lucky, kind of accidentally, to be thrown in with a bunch of these guys that have all been really good guys. And even though I don't see them or talk to them as often as I'd like, I can pick up the phone and call any of them, for advice or help or whatever. Got really lucky with that group. So just trying to kind of continue that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like the slogan you came up with. Well, it wasn't really a slogan, but when we were talking about this episode and what we want to talk about, you said sound money, sound body, sound mind.
Yeah, for sure.
So actually, I used that in the show description today.
Good.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
We were thinking of other ones. We are trying to come up with a competition for what the slogan should be. So maybe some other people can write some comments in the comment area, or let me know a little bit later. But yeah, so David, we got maybe 3 minutes. I want to wrap this up. We're going to try to keep it under 35 minutes. But what would you say the biggest challenge right now that you're facing in your role? I know you don't necessarily have a traditional role at a company, but what would you say the biggest challenge is that you're facing, and how are you tackling it today?
Really, it's honestly, at this point, it's just being there and being known, right? Whether it's what I'm doing, whether it's a very specified role or service or hardware that you're selling, or software you're developing, whatever it is, right? It's just about being there, right? And so what I'm trying to do, just like when you look for the right kind of people to work with or whatever, is just you look for the quality events, right? And just try to be a part of as much as you possibly can. Try to know what everybody, not everybody, obviously you're not going to know everybody, but what as many people as possible are working on the new projects. I'm working on a pretty cool project where we're going to take bourbon waste and turn it to methane and use that to power Bitcoin mining, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
there's probably renewable energy credits there, because we're not only creating it, we're also combusting it and using it. So that's going to be interesting. Off-grid sites that are not necessarily in the middle of nowhere, but maybe they're like legally kind of stranded gas or something like that. What these guys are doing with flare gas is really, and there's a lot of cool players in that industry, is really interesting. I think that's what I really want to. I'm doing a couple of heat recaptures over in Europe, a couple projects, just because that heat is such a valuable commodity over there, right? So these are all interesting.
It's cold up there. And power costs a lot up there.
Yeah. So Norway and Finland are the two locations for that, and they're really interesting. And so immersion cooling, because it's in a liquid form, makes that it's really efficient at heat recapture. So really, just my challenge is just keeping to find those projects that I can help assist with. Bringing the right players, bringing the right people together to get those off the ground. Sometimes it's funding for the project. Sometimes it's, hey, we need this sort of software. Hey, we need somebody we're going to host, and they need to understand that this is a new technology, right? So we can't come in and just promise, hey, you're going to have, 10, 15, 20 megawatts at 95% uptime, right? This is a challenge. So meeting the right kind of people that understand, that are willing to kind of work with a project to get it up and running off the ground. That's
right.
Probably the biggest thing that I'm looking for. And so I'm just, try to go out to everything. I think I'm going to be moderating a panel at Empower in Houston, which
Nice.
is the Digital Wildcatter group. Those guys are awesome. Really merging those two. Really interested in seeing how Bitcoin is merging, is really bringing energy, not just energy, but cheap, plentiful, not just renewable, but plentiful energy, and doing it in a way that is as efficient and cheap as possible to just enable, enable prosperity, right? For everyone who wants to be involved. So
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to go to that event. I haven't been to the Digital Wildcatters
I haven't either,
events yet.
but I know, I've met most of the people that are involved in different ways, and that sort of thing. So, and I've been following them for a long time. So, I'm really excited to get to be a part of that. So,
Yeah. Okay, so to wrap it up,
Mhm.
what's one question that you wish I'd asked you, and how would you have answered it?
um,
You got
you
30 seconds. Come on.
really should have asked me cast iron or stainless steel. Really, I'm kind of disappointed.
You gonna tell me the answer or what?
It moves so fast. Technology moves us so fast that nobody even cares about it anymore. It's one of life's great mysteries.
What about
So,
Teflon?
yeah, I'm kind of both. It just depends on the application. Yeah, I'm going to be a middle of the road guy right now.
Okay.
So,
All right, that's fine.
no, I don't. You ask all the right questions. You ask all the good ones. So,
Good. So yeah, one final question for you then.
Mhm.
What's a resource that you'd recommend to my audience, and why would you recommend that resource?
Man, honestly, that's a hard one. I'd probably just say, if they're not incredibly active or at least on the boards reading, Telegram is super important right now. I think that's going to move over to a lot of that's going to move over to Nostr as well, right? So
Yeah.
I'm still trying to get that configured, but if you want to find me on there, I'm no strings attached.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out myself too.
It's Nostr ings attached.
Okay.
And I've got my InPub on Twitter at David Branscombe. But I think those two, there's some really cool stuff happening on Nostr. So you should, if you're not playing with that, take the time to learn it, figure it out. Really, that's pretty much it, man. I mean,
Awesome.
lots of plebs, talking about what they're doing in their basements and on their farms, and really cool stuff that's really kind of driving everything. So,
Yeah. Well, David, it was great having you. Nice to chit chat about crypto and mental health. We'll see you very soon.
yes, sir. Hope so.
All right.
This episode is brought to you by ASIC Ninja.